Hey guys, today I want to take another look at another huge and major sign of decline for President Trump in the 2020 election compared to his numbers that he saw in 2016. And this is just the fact that Joe Biden is doing much better in states that we really did not expect to actually be battleground states. Some of these states went to Trump by pretty good margins in 2016, and now some of the closest states in the entire presidential election. So first, I'm going to fill in just the solid and likely states as I typically do, just to get these states out of the way so we can talk about the battleground states and just which states are huge surprises to be classified as battleground states in this election. And I think that this is definitely a pretty huge sign of decline for President Trump. So of course, Joe Biden's typical 212 electoral votes. For President Trump, we have 125 electoral votes, I believe, is what his typical safe states amount to, or safe and likely states. So yep, right here, 125 electoral votes for President Trump, 212 for Joe Biden. So that leaves these other states as battleground states, a large chunk of the electorate, a huge amount of battleground states in this election, more than we've ever seen before. There are currently 201 electoral votes worth of battleground states on the 2020 election map. So some of these states are not surprises to be battleground states on this map. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, these three states form the blue wall that had been solid for the Democrats for over 2 decades before Trump was able to break through this wall and carry all three of these states, all by less than 1%, 0.7% in Wisconsin, 0.2% in Michigan, and 0.6% in Pennsylvania. These states were so close in 2016. However, now it seems that these states are some of the these states seem to be doing pretty well for Joe Biden compared to these other swing states. These three states seem to be doing, in the top in terms of leads for Joe Biden. These three states are all doing pretty well, especially the state of Michigan, which has been polling with a likely margin in favor of Joe Biden pretty consistently for months now. Wisconsin also improving. Pennsylvania did see a little bit of a dip. However, it is still expected to go to Joe Biden. These three states have been expected to be battleground states, so not surprises on this map in 2020. Minnesota, not either, a state that Clinton was barely able to carry by 1.5%. This is the state with the longest Democratic voting streak in the entire map, as it was the only state that did not go to Ronald Reagan in his 1984 landslide. And then we can take a look at some of these other states. New Hampshire, not really a surprise to see this on the battleground map. As you can see, the state of New Hampshire only went to Clinton by 0.4%. That is even closer than Wisconsin was for President Trump. So that was pretty surprising to see 4 years ago. And Clinton she proved to be quite unpopular in the Northeast 4 years ago. She lost the 2nd district as well, which is no surprises here, a battleground state, along with the 2nd district of Nebraska. And then Nevada, this is a state that Clinton carried by 2.5%, a state Trump was leading in on election night, so surprised that she actually won this state. But it's not surprising that it's on the battleground map, as this state is currently doing pretty well for Joe Biden. But it was pretty close in 2016, so it is on the battleground states map. Arizona was also pretty close, but Clinton never led in the state 4 years ago. This is also a state that has been expected to be trending towards the left, so really not too much of a surprise. I think that we all knew that the state of Arizona was going to be a lot closer this time around than it was in 2016, no matter who won this state, just because of its shifting demographics. Phoenix is, of course, the fastest growing city in the entire country, and it is located in Arizona. And this new influx of population is mostly Latino and Hispanic voters, which by default almost always vote for the Democratic Party. Florida, always very close, so always going to be a battleground state, I think, for decades to come. North Carolina was pretty close as well, only 3.6% in favor of President Trump on election night. So North Carolina, really not too surprising. But the 4 surprises here, Texas. First off, state of Texas. A state that went to the Republicans in every single election since 1980. And after Jimmy Carter, who is from the South, he was from the state of Georgia. Jimmy Carter was the last Democrat to carry the state of Texas. And Trump is, the closest that any president has ever gone, any Republican candidate, to losing the streak for the GOP. This is one of the most important states in the entire country for the Republicans. This is basically a lesser version of the Democrats' California. But the only difference here is that California polls in favor of the Democrats by over 30% consistently. The state of Texas is pretty up and down for the GOP, and the demographics are shifting in Texas as well, just like Arizona and basically all of the Sun Belt. as well as the Bible Belt, in fact, and that is that the southern region of the United States, the Sun Belt, is all moving towards the left. That is very alarming for the GOP, in my opinion, that that they might lose a state as important to them as the state of Texas. 38 electoral votes. A GOP candidate cannot win the election without Texas, in my opinion. As you can see, if Georgia wins the Clinton states, he would win Nevada as well as New Hampshire and Minnesota. In Texas, he wins the election. So these are states that Trump cannot afford to lose, the state of Texas. And another state that he cannot afford to lose, Iowa. I think that if he loses Iowa, he's going to lose the election. And just how close Iowa is right now is just such a huge sign of decline for the Trump campaign, as well as Texas. We're going to take a look at the polling data as well as the 2016 results in just a few moments here, taking a look at just the sign of decline for the Trump campaign and how clear it is. State of Ohio as well will go into this surprising battlegrounds category. Ohio might have been a state that went to Barack Obama in 2012, but Trump carried it by over 8%. Iowa, Trump carried by over 9% in 2016. So we really did not expect these states to be so close. These are states that Trump carried by pretty solid margins 4 years ago that are now basically the closest states in the entire election according to the polls. There are no closer states than these 3 states on the electoral map, as well as the state of Georgia. If you take a look at the polls, these 4 states, along with New Hampshire and Florida, but not New Hampshire, North Carolina and Florida, but these 2 states were expected to be very close. But these 4 states were not. And they are among the closest states in this election, and they are going to be some of the closest states in this election. So let's start off by taking a look at the numbers in Texas. So the state of Texas, Trump leads by 1.8%. This is actually good for President Trump. His numbers have been solidifying, I guess. They've been, they've still been going for Biden in many polls. This poll, Biden +4 even, according to Morning Consult. But the numbers, they are showing that President Trump has not fallen behind in the state since August. So props to him. He's doing pretty well here. Not pretty well, but relatively pretty well compared to the trends that we saw just in the summer. Looking at the 2016 results, Trump won this state by 9%. He was leading by 11.7%. And that's on polls. So if you say your polls are wrong, first of all, they've improved so much since 2016. And even if polls are right, in this case, I guess Trump underperformed by 2.7%. If he does that now, he's going to lose the election. So for those of you that are talking about all the swings going to happen just like 2016, the Republicans have underperformed according to the compared to the polls in every single election since 2008 for the GOP. They have never done better than what the polls said, and Mitt Romney did worse, John McCain did worse, President Trump, as you can see, did worse 4 years ago. And so if we were to apply this swing to 2020, Biden would carry this state. But I think that Trump is still going to carry this state, and maybe even by a lean margin, possibly a likely margin. I really don't see that happening too much, but I think a likely margin is in reach for President Trump. That is only because of the whole mail-in situation with the absentee ballots in the state of Texas. Because in Texas, unlike most states where you get a ballot in the mail, or you just have to request for one and they will send it to you regardless of any reason. But in the state of Texas, you have to have an actual reason, not actual reason, but just a reason that does not include COVID-19. Not wanting to get a disease or possibly get infected with a disease that killed over 200,000 Americans is not a good enough excuse, apparently, to request a absentee ballot in the state of Texas. And absentee ballots and mail-in ballots are literally the same thing. But in the state of Texas, you have to request for one. You have to have a reason, an excuse that does not, is not COVID-19. So I think definitely this is, clearly it is fully partisan for why this were to occur. The GOP just doesn't want to lose, their most prized possession in, on the electoral map here. So this is the GOP attempting to save basically their party, because I think that if Texas flips, I think the GOP is just done in general. So moving on to the next state, the state of Iowa, 6 electoral votes. Really not too important of a state that went to Barack Obama both times, and a state that Trump flipped in 2016. Now, Ohio is not too important, but I think that Ohio is a good sign as to how this election is going to go. Now, the state of Iowa is very close right now. Trump leads by 0.8%, and, well, polls do show him up, but, it's really not too great, 0.8% up for President Trump. Biden is still consistently leading in some polls. So Biden was actually ahead here for a couple of days in June and July. So, that's a good sign for the Biden campaign. But currently, Trump only leads by 0.8% compared to 2016. He led by 3%. And yes, Clinton was leading in this state, but you have to consider the fact that this state was an Obama state in 2012 and 2008. So in the previous two elections, this state was a Democratic state, and you have to take that into account. And Trump was leading by 3%. He won the state by 9.5%. Polling data has improved so much. And I think that we will all see on election night that polling data is going to be much more accurate than it was in 2016. And if you really want to argue about this, there are right-leaning polls that show Biden in the lead in some of these states that we're going to take a look at. I think there's one that shows Biden in the lead in Ohio according to a right-leaning pollster, so I'm going to take a look at that. But, these states, I guess, honestly, Iowa is a little bit better for Trump than the state of Texas. I will admit that, but state that went to Trump by 9.5%, still polling in favor of Trump by less than 1%. That's not good, and that's a huge sign of decline. If he would really win this state by 0.8%, I think he's just absolutely done for in this election. So the state of Ohio is next, and I see a lot of people making the argument that, Ohio has been the bellwether state for over 6 decades. It has never the way that Ohio voted has never disagreed with how the presidential election has gone. And, a lot of people are saying that, but really Ohio's bellwether status, it doesn't matter. Okay, it does not matter. It's not like Ohio voters are just brainwashing everybody to vote the same way they are. And it doesn't matter because Ohio, at the end of the day, is just a state. It might be 18 electoral votes. That's a pretty large amount, but it's just a state. In 2016, this state went to Donald Trump, as we can see right here. The state of Ohio went to Trump by 8.1%. 8.1%. And then if we were to take a look at the popular vote among the entire country, Clinton won it by 2.5%. So the state of Ohio was over 10 points voted more to the right for Donald Trump than the national average. So Ohio no longer aligns with the majority of the country, which is why even, it's really not too much of a surprise that this state is, much closer than it was in 2016. This state is going to be very close, and whether or not it goes to Biden or Trump really does not matter, as I think that anyways it is going to lose its bellwether status. So the state of Ohio, we take a look at the polls right here. Joe Biden actually leads in this state by 1%. This is the state that went to Trump by 8.1%. Currently, Joe Biden leads here by 1%. He leads in the 4 latest polls. He leads by 5 points in the 2 Fox News polls. A- rated pollster, Vic NPapaga, shows Biden up 1 point. This other poll shows Biden up 1 point as well. And Rasmussen reports this is one of President Trump's favorite polls among likely voters. This is a pollster that really likes to exaggerate the numbers for President Trump. And this is a pollster that was able to correctly predict the Rust Belt states. They were able to show that Donald Trump was in the lead on the final days of the 2016 race, and that's why they gained a lot of attention. This poll shows Biden up 4%, released just a couple weeks ago. So, some right-wing pollsters are showing very good numbers for Joe Biden in the state of Ohio, plus 1% in favor of the former vice president. Right now, here in the state of Ohio, a state that Trump won by 8.1% 4 years ago. And finally, the state of Georgia. Currently, President Trump leads by 1.1% in this state. The 3 latest polls show a dead-even race in the state of Georgia. Tie, and tie. So even, and even. This is an A-plus rated pollster. Scannon College and the New York Times. Data for progress isn't too bad, actually. B- rated pollster, it's not too bad. These 3 Monmouth University polls do show Trump up 5, up 2, and up 1. But the 3 latest polls show Biden in an even, pretty even with Trump. And this is definitely not a state that he needs. The state of Georgia is not a part of Joe Biden's election winning plan, and it shouldn't be because this is a state that went to Trump by, let's see right here, 5.1% in 2016. He led by 4.8% on election night over Hillary Clinton. Clinton did not lead in this state since August. So this is a state that, this is a state that Biden really does not expect to win, and it's not a state that he needs. But he's tying with President Trump here in a state that he really has not put that much time and money into. He has put money into ads here, but really not too much driving up his popular vote count. but I think that Democrats are still going to cap in this state. They typically do hit their ceiling at around 48-49%, and the Republicans are still able to pull off very, very narrow victories in this state, as Georgia, along with the southern states as well, and just the Sun Belt in general, is moving more and more to the left. So this is just, I want to take a look at something else that I think was a major sign of decline, just comparing Trump's 2016 to 2020 numbers in these four states that I don't think we really expected to be so close as they are now. These states are going to be some of the closest states in the entire election, and I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see how these states play out. Personally, I still think that these states are going to go to President Trump, just because these states have, went to him by such a large margin in 2016, and these states do tend to still vote for Republicans on the Senate level as well. So these four states, we're going to have to see very interesting races in all four of these states: Iowa, Texas, Ohio, and Georgia. And so that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like down below, as well as subscribing to my channel if you have not, with the notification bell on, so you do not miss out on my new videos. And I announced that I was going to consider making a Discord. I will try to get that finished for you guys as soon as possible. Maybe a couple of weeks I will make the Discord public so you guys can all join, so we can chat on there in the future. And so yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments below, as well as suggestions for videos you'd like to see from me in the future, and I will see you in the next video.